G'day, Blue Baggers, and welcome back to Blues Footy Live, the one of the last installments of this show for season 2021. It is your host, Jed Zetzer here, alongside my co-host, Harrison Hymans. Bolt, you look very confused, my friend. What's going on your end?
Yeah, well, my computer's been playing. I can't get the camera working on my computer, so I'm on my phone. But just bizarre. I don't know what's happened. It was working last night
on your end, mate.
It was working last night on Zoom, so I don't know what's happened.
Fair enough. But let's quickly get into it because there's so much to get through tonight. This is the last match preview edition of this show that we're doing. We may be back for some other type of content after the season comes to a completion, but in terms of previewing the match, this is the last time we're going to do it. So let's do that and look straight at the team changes. Do you want to read them out for us?
So it's just Cripps, our journeyman, and Fogarty come in for Murphy and Paddy Dow.
You might want to quickly provide some context as to why you're calling Cripps a journeyman. For people who may not have heard you call him that before, let's just provide some context, Bolt.
I'm just making fun of Lee Matthews, who described him as playing like a journeyman at the moment. So I'm sure Lee's a bit confused as to why he's come straight back in and not through the reserves, but it's great to have our captain back. And then Murphy obviously retired and Dow has been dropped.
Now, I want to talk about this because I've been racking my brains for the last 2 hours as to how and why Dow has been dropped. And there's only one conclusion that makes sense to me. There's only one. And just quickly, Blue Bag is tuning in. Be sure to comment in the comment section what your thoughts are on the team changes. Let us know and we'll read out your comments. But the only explanation that I could possibly think makes sense is that there's so many players in this team that they want to see what they can bring in the last week of the season. Players like that are out of contract that they may want to give them one last crack. I don't know, just gain any information on them. And they might just see Dow as someone who is safe and locked and loaded for next year. And I don't know, I guess, probably more to gain out of seeing an O'Brien who might be able to save his career in the last week, or someone, I don't even know who else. But I mean, it's just that's the only explanation I can think of, because a guy who's had such a improved second half of the season, to drop him when it really isn't warranted just makes no sense to me. And it kills his confidence going into the next season. I mean, you go into an off-season being dropped. That's not what you want to do.
It is weird, isn't it? Look, he's not my favourite player, but I'm equally surprised. It's come out of nowhere a little. There's definitely been worse contributors at the moment than Paddy Dow. Yeah, it makes little sense. It makes little sense to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Let's look at some of the comments here. So Angus Kidman says they want older players to play for Levi and Eddie's last game.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's a lot of people who also, why is Dow dropped?
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Nick Webb says you will definitely tell us why.
No, I'm equally surprised.
Yeah, this is an interesting one from Brody. Where is Sam Ramsey at? I mean, you would have thought that they give him a go. I feel like it would be very stiff if he was delisted this year without being given a crack, considering, how our years panned out. Maybe they're going to give him another contract. I don't know. But he also, I mean, he seems like one who has genuinely earned to crack through the VFL.
Yeah. It's hard to give out a contract when, the bloke hasn't played, over 39 games, over the course of 39 available games. It's very difficult. I'm not sure what they'll do with Ramsey, but you feel like he'll probably be delisted.
It's tough. I mean, I wouldn't personally. If I was in charge, I wouldn't delist him, but I don't know. You just never know. So this week's game, Eddie's 350th and his last. It's it's a sad time, Bolt. It's a sad time. And we farewelled an absolute champion of the football club last week with Murph. And now we do the same with Eddie. Two champions and legends of the football club depart. How do we summarise Eddie in a very short amount of time?
Well, he's a pioneer of our game, I guess, for Indigenous people. So he's been really, really good in that space. He's just been a super player for a very long time. And I think it's very nice that he's been able to come back to Carlton for a couple of years just to ingrain himself in our memories again, because he did play his best footy at Adelaide, which was a bit hard to watch from our end. He was an absolute rock star over there, but he's been very, very good for Carlton. Over 200 games for us, over 300 goals for us. He's been a pleasure with Eddie.
He has been. He's been an absolute pleasure to watch, and just an amazing, amazing person, an amazing footballer. And for those who didn't catch him last night on the channel, be sure to go back and watch the replay, because it was great viewing and something that all Carlton supporters should definitely watch. Yes, it is also worth noting farewell to Levi as well. Ends on, he got the 150 Bolt, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, we farewell Levi Casbolt as well, who remarkably, at the beginning of his career, you would never have picked him to reach 150 games, and he got there, and he turned himself into a serviceable player for a sustained period of time, and it's hard to do. It's hard to play 150 games, and whilst he didn't reach the level of Murphy and Betts, you still got to acknowledge what he did for this football club. And he grew up a mad Carlton man. He lived out his childhood dream. He played 150 games for the club, and I almost feel for Levi that he ended this year on. He didn't play his best football this year, and I feel like if he had ended last year, it would have been, he would have got a lot more credit for what he did. But he's still got to give credit where credit's due, and he's had a great career, 150 games. So farewelling him as well this week.
Yep. Oh, we'll leave it at that. You summed it up nicely.
Bolt, this week's game. Talk us through the matchups. Obviously, no H. Charlie's the big man up forward. How do we match up against him?
So we've still got Curnow, McGovern, Casbolt up forward. Who you'd assume Taylor will go to Charlie Curnow. You'd assume Jake Steen will go to Casbolt, and then maybe a Haynes or a Cumming or even Peatling or Connor, probably Connor Iden. They've got a few of those medium-sized defenders, but it'll probably be Iden to McGovern. Phil Davis is actually an emergency for this weekend's game on the eve of the finals, which is interesting.
That is bizarre.
And so is Stephen Canelio.
I have views on Canelio. I'm going to make a bold call here, because this isn't a GWS show, so I don't need to worry about the GWS fans, but I don't think he's in their best 22, Canelio. I don't think he's in there. As crazy as that sounds, I just think their midfield, I don't think he's that amazing anymore.
He's definitely gone a bit slow. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week if they, are playing that elimination final. It's very hard. He's the captain. As in, can you leave the captain out of the final? It'll be very interesting. But
this is basically, even though it's against us, this is an elimination final for them.
Yeah, they lose and they're at major threat of missing it. So they've got to win. They should be okay, GWS though. But it'll be interesting. Their midfield bats well deeper than ours. Hopper, Kelly, Ward, Perryman, those types of guys. Toby Green will go in and out. Taranto will go in and out. Matt DeBoer. Xavier O'Halloran's been really good of late as well. So
you're a big fan of his.
I like him. Yeah, he looks really good. And then, we've still got, Cripps, Kennedy, Walsh, Ed Curnow. Not much. That's maybe Fisher will tend a couple of stoppages, but not a lot other than that.
I'd like to see Fogarty in there.
Yeah. He's had a very disappointing second half of the season, really. Since the bye, he's been absent. So he probably needs it for himself. But, he's had a terrible end to the season.
I mean, his first half of the year, Fogarty, we were raving about him. I mean, it seemed like he was a diamond in the rough.
Yeah. It did, but, he's just another player at the moment, and he's, had to fight his way back into this team. And at the end of the day, he just fell behind Silvani and even Honey and Betts and Owies and, Fisher and Martin and those guys.
Talking about the defenders this week, who do you reckon will line up? Obviously, Kemp and Wieders are going to be the two big men down back. Who do they line up on, Bolt?
Are we Wiedering? Tough. I think Wiedering Hogan and potentially Kemp to Himmelberg, but Casbolt will be on high alert to swing if he needs to. And then I think Plowman. See, Taranto spends a lot of time forward last week, but Toby Green's back. I think Stocker will get Toby Green. And you know what? It might be Plowman playing on Himmelberg. I think Plowman will play tall.
Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, have you got me? You got me?
All right, you're back.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. Real tech issues going on. But so I think it'll be Wiedering Hogan. I then actually think it will be Plowman playing tall on Himmelberg. I think Stocker will get Green, and I think Kemp will have that in between job of whether it's Zach Sproul, whether it's Kieran Briggs resting forward, something like that.
Yeah. And you think it'll be Plowman on Green?
No, I think it'll be Stocker. I think Green will play tall, unless they swing Casbolt back.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. And yeah, as Brody said here, it would have been nice to see Riccardi this week.
Yeah, the Riccardi party. Yeah, that'll be interesting what happens there at the end of the season.
Do you feel like he'll come to Carlton?
I don't know too much about it at this stage yet to say either way, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're looking at him, given, someone like Casbolt's departing the club.
Do you want to give us a little trade update, Bolt? Who do you think is looking likely to come to Carlton? Who do you think we're sniffing around, and do you feel anyone might leave?
Well, I think Petreski-Seaman's got one foot out the door, as we know. And I don't think much has changed from last week, to be honest. Chera, still going to be beating around he'll be lurking. The incoming coach might be a spanner in the work for him, though. And then there's Lipinski, who we know, and there was another one, wasn't there? And then Riccardi.
And Hewitt.
And Hewers. It'll be interesting. There hasn't been too much talk on it, I guess, just because much of the, we've got to get a coach first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do have a coach. We just need to find out if he's staying or not. Let's take a look at the midfield battle here. GWS, they have an unbelievable midfield. You called it out earlier. You named how deep it is and how deep it goes, and it's scary on paper. Do you think we're any chance up against them in the midfield? Because we were smashed against them when we played them over in Sydney.
Yeah.
We were there. We saw it. Kennedy was the man who stood up. Kennedy's in amazing form. Do you think he can lead us again this week?
It's going to have to be more than Kennedy, because they absolutely took a hold of us. And the one I missed before was Whitfield in that list as well. That's a name I shouldn't be missing. But, look, we were absolutely belted from pillar to post in the midfield, in round 14. So Cripps was well down that night. Walsh was tagged out of the game by De Boer, so I assumed De Boer would go straight to him again.
Is De Boer in the side?
Yeah.
He is?
Yeah, De Boer's in.
Okay.
So,
doesn't feel like that long ago that we played GWS.
No. I wish we were back to those times. But, yeah. Yes. Yeah. It was before the storm hit. But look, it doesn't feel... It was about, 9 weeks ago now. But it'll be interesting. Hopefully we learned a bit, because we kind of pegged our way back into that game late, and we couldn't have played worse early on. So we'll see what happens. This is a big opportunity for De Koning, who I think's had a very underwhelming season on his own. He's up against Briggs and Sproul, do a bit of rucking. So that's a matchup where, if he can't impose himself and give us, center stoppage dominance, then that's a real issue.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an interesting one. Luke Ryan said he loved Ross Lyon today, reunited at Carlton. Well, our coach is David Teague currently. And there's no guarantees that Teague will leave, and there's no guarantees that if he does leave, Lyon will come. So we're going to have to wait. Just a wait on with that one. I mean, do you feel like that's any chance, Bold, of happening if somehow Ross Lyon became our coach?
I'd be absolutely shocked.
Yep, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I like this. Casbolt should run through De Boer at the first bounce.
Yeah, well, may as well. Make himself valuable.
So, Bolt, when you look at this match, give us your prediction.
How much did I tip Port Adelaide by last week? Was it 64? Was that the number?
I think it was something like that.
Giants by 52.
Yeah, look.
I can't say I'm looking forward to Saturday night. I'd be lying to you if I said I was.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think I've ever been this
non-phased about a result.
Yeah, unexcited. Is it uninterested or disinterested?
Disinterested. Well,
I've never been this disinterested in a match, and that's crazy because I wait all week to watch Carlton. Like I look forward to it, count it down, and yeah, I mean, I'm so disinterested. I mean, the result this week has no bearing on us. Tell you what has a bearing on us: how the players come out and play fatigue. It's going to be really
interesting.
Do you think if we win, he's a chance of staying still, or you think regardless of result this week, it's done?
I think the decision either way would be done. If the findings from the review have already been delivered at club level, then that will be done either way. A decision would have been made.
Fair enough. Jack wants to know, what do you think about Dow being dropped for Fogarty? Yeah, well, I think as we said earlier, just a bit of shock that Dow was dropped. But this one's coming from Pommy. To be fair, if we're disinterested, imagine being a player. Yeah.
Yeah. And it shows.
I think, we can say that ever since this review's happened, it's become a mess. But let's be honest, it was a mess before that. I mean, why did the review come in the first place?
As in, 4 and 9 when the review came in. So that's just, it's been chaotic. It's been, mind me for a second, but the season's been a shit show.
It has been. And it's funny. It's been a shit show, but it's not even the worst we've seen.
I know. It's actually the most wins we've seen in 8 years, and we're describing it as a shit show.
Wow,
it's funny though, because Fremantle are relying on Carlton to win this week, yet they couldn't beat us twice throughout the season. So I was thinking today, if you couldn't beat Carlton at 2 attempts to get yourself into the finals, then don't rely on us now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't be relying on us if I were them.
No.
But let's open the questions here. Blue Baggers, any questions you might have, chuck them below. Anything to do with the game, anything to do with our season, trade period, anything, chuck the questions below. And I'm going to open one up. I want Blue Baggers to comment an out-of-contract player in the league that you would like us to target in the trade period. Well, I want to ask you, Daniel Talia.
Yep.
Would you give him a chance at Carlton?
I don't think it's that necessary for Carlton, to be honest. I think there's other clubs that would probably need his services more than us.
Do you think he'll get another crack somewhere?
Yeah, I think he'll either end up at Richmond or Essendon.
Okay, I mean, I'd love him to get a crack. I think he's an awesome player. I think
he's
very
only
hard.
29. He's not.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He's only 29. I mean, yeah, I don't think it would be the worst get if we got him.
I just don't know if there's a specific need for Talia, Jones, and Wiedering.
Well, I don't think Talia would play. I just think his depth.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think he'd play at Richmond and Essendon, so it'll be interesting. I'm not sure if he'll be one that we're eyeing.
Pommy wants to know, what do you think is the method in this trade window? Is it attack the draft, or is it attack out of contract, hard and trade?
No, I think we've got to get ready-made established players. I can't back Carlton at the draft, to be completely honest. I just think we don't have it. Time is of the essence at the moment. And, if Chera's available, I'd rather go and get your established 22-year-old midfielder, which is a way safer pick than going in and pick 5 or 6 for the draft.
I get that. I do get that. I also just think, though, if you look at the top, I don't know if this is because the game's changing, but if you look at the top 10 draft picks in the last couple of years, basically since Walsh's draft, they all come along very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. So
they can come in and have an impact in their first year.
For sure. But Chera's at that level where, he's going to explode if he hasn't already. So I've got no issues giving up that first-round pick there. I don't love the thought of trading future picks because you never know where you're going to be 12 months on. So I hope they don't get carried away with that. But it's just, and I guess the reason why I don't think we should be that desperate for draft picks this year is because we've got, Kemp and Durden and Carroll who have barely been exposed to footy as it is. So, they haven't made themselves to be established, draft picks over the last 2 drafts yet.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. And it's a good question. Big Matthew Kennedy wants to know thoughts on us getting George Hewitt.
Yeah, I think it's a long-term replacement, or at least a medium-term replacement for Ed Curnow after he will probably play his last year next year.
Yeah, I don't know. In my head, I'm 50-50 as to whether we should go and get players or draft. I mean, I was looking at the last 2 or 3 drafts. Mate, these players come in and have an impact straight away. I
just don't trust Carlton. That's my issue.
You don't trust our drafting?
No, it's been disgraceful for a very long time. So I've actually got zero trust for them. I'd rather someone else develop them than they come across.
It's fair. I like this one as well. We need ruck depth. Well, this is an interesting one.
We do desperately.
What type of ruckman do we go out and get?
It's very awkward, but we need someone that can actually impose themselves and make a bit of a contribution at stoppages. Centre bounces especially.
I feel like we need like a 30-year-old ruckman who can come in for 2 years and let De Koning just keep, I guess, developing. And then when he goes, De Koning will take the reins.
It's hard. I feel like De Koning needs to be playing in the same breath. So it's a really difficult position they're in. Pitternet's not the man. It's really they do need another ruckman though anyway, because we still haven't really replaced Cruiser, let's be honest. But it's tough.
Do we list Sam Ramsey? Personally, I wouldn't. As I've said, Bolt, you think we will, don't you?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, look, I think this is a great comment from Brandon. This is a fantastic comment. We need to target players with premiership experience. I agree. We need players to come into this side who can actually have an impact and actually enforce some standards at training. I was a massive fan of Brandon Ellis, and he's gone over to the Gold Coast, and he's just instilled some training standards there. And, the Gold Coast aren't tracking all that well, but I think Ellis would have been a good one for us to get. I don't know. I think it's a great comment. We need to bring some players in who actually know how to win. Because I don't think we've got a premiership. I think Eddie's the only player on our whole list who's actually played in a grand final.
Yeah. Well, George Hewitt's been to a grand final before. So,
well, it's not on the list, but I'm saying right now.
No. But I'm saying, if that's someone that they're targeting who's got that experience of playing in a really good team. But yeah, Eddie would be the only one at the moment. Yes.
Well, do you reckon it's going to be hard for us to convince players to come to our club? I mean, look at the season we've had. Surely players will be hesitant to come, especially we're talking about Hewitt, who's at Sydney, who are well on the up, and he's got a spot in their 22. And we're speaking about Lipinski as well. He's not as cemented in their 22, but also a club who's, in finals this year. Why would someone like Chera, who's at Fremantle, who are well and truly on the up, why would he come to us? And why would he come to us?
It's hard to make a compelling case to say Carlton over another team. It's very difficult. So, yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure why you'd want to do it to yourself right now, to be honest. But I guess if he can see upside on the list, then that's a good thing. If he buys in, that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, well, this is a good point from Adonis that Sydney have huge cap issues. So I
They
suppose they might say to him, unfortunately, whilst you're in the 22, we just can't squeeze you in.
No, for sure. And they'll get, he's a restricted free agent, so they'll get some sort of compensation as well from the AFL.
Yeah, I'm sure. Bolt, it's been a pleasure. Blue Baggers, before we go, post your tip for this week below. Who's going to win? By how much, Bolt? You've said the Giants by 52, was it?
Yep.
I'm going to go... Oh, it's interesting. I reckon Eddie's going to kick 5. I'm not giving a tip because I don't think we're going to win, but I reckon Eddie will go out with a bang.
Hopefully. It'd be nice to see. It'll be nice.
He's kicked 25 goals this year as well.
Yep, not the worst season.
I think it was 18 games.
Yeah, his last month's been quiet, but he's had a pretty good year overall.
Yep. No, I'm, very pleased. And look, stiff that he didn't go on. Stiff that we didn't give him the opportunity to go on. But I guess all good things do have to come to an end, Bolt.
For sure.
The tips coming in aren't very convincing from a Carlton point of view.
No, I'm sure.
I think we're going to end things here. Bolt, thank you very much. Blue Baggers, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Blues Footy Live. And hopefully we'll be back soon. I think we will be back to do some off-season stuff, Bolt, so keep your eyes peeled.
Yep, we'll see you then.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.